Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited for today's video because I'm going to be reviewing all three of the Natasha Denona Holiday Releases limited edition palettes. So today I have the 15 pan Natasha Denona Safari palette. This is her all matte palette. The inside looks like this. Then I have her regular size 5 pan palette. This is the cranberry palette. Again, a very beautiful palette, especially for the holiday time. And then finally I have the mini star palette, which looks like this. This is basically just a mini version of her larger, I don't even know how many pans are in it, 28, 16, 20, I don't know. This is a smaller version of her original star palette. So I've been testing all three of these out throughout the course of the last couple weeks. Some of them I've been testing more than others. I got the mini star as well as the Safari palette before I got the cranberry palette. So the cranberry is the one that I've tested out the least, but I've still tested every single shade in all of these palettes. I've really been trying hard to make sure that I get a good grasp on every single shade so I can give you guys a fair and honest opinion. But if you're interested in my thoughts on all three of the limited holiday releases by Natasha Denona, then just keep watching. We are going to jump into the Safari palette first. This is the 15 pan palette by Natasha Denona. This is an all matte palette. I believe this is the first time she's done an all matte palette. This is what it looks like. You get a really big nice mirror in this, and the packaging is very sturdy. It is just hard plastic, which is a little bit different. Normally her palettes that are this size are like that leather bound type of packaging, but this is just a hard plastic. It still feels really sturdy, and it still feels like your shadows are going to be safe in here, but definitely worth mentioning. I love the army or hunter green with the light pink, and then like the discreet matte lettering right here. So I think the packaging is beautiful as always. This does retail for $129, so very expensive. The shelf life on this is 24 months. I'm quickly just going to go ahead and read to you what her website says about this palette. It says, a palette that has 15 new sophisticated shades with Natasha's signature matte formula. After receiving a huge amount of requests, Natasha decided to design the perfect matte palette. The color scheme is safari inspired, offering wearable warms, cool muted tones, and unique medium to dark shades to complement your current collection. Natasha creates her palettes so that any 3 shades in a row can be used to create an entire look. So basically any 3 shades in any of the 3 rows can be used to complete an entire look. And with this palette, you guys, I have tried every single shade in this palette so that I understand how it performs. The top row, which is the bottom because I'm holding it upside down, here we'll go like this. So the top row has cool and muted sort of gray tones to it. The middle row has your warm tones, and then the bottom row has highly requested rich red tones. Chromatic looks are simple to create using colors horizontally, and polychromatic looks can be created by using colors vertically. There are 37.5 grams of product in this palette, so you are getting quite a lot of product. And then it also says that these shadows are not dusty and come in a zero fallout formula, which is ideal yet very hard to find in matte textures. We're just going to hone in on that last sentence about the textures being not dusty. And I'm going to tell you why I have an issue with this, and then I'm going to get into all of my issues with this palette. As you can tell, I'm not wearing eyeshadow right now, and part of that is because I want to show you how some of the mattes in here blend. But first, let me start off by saying I was so excited when this palette released. I didn't care it was $129. I really enjoy the Lila palette, or the Lila palette. I have the 15 pan Lila palette by Natasha Denona, which I was blown away by. So I was really excited. I loved the color story in this palette. I thought all of the shades were beautiful, and I thought I would get a lot of use out of this palette. So I was very excited for this release. I'm gonna zoom you guys way in for this. Let's just talk about this non-dusty formula. So right here I have my Sigma Tapered Blending E35 brush, and I'm just going to tap 4 times into that. I hope that this is picking up on camera, but there is now brown fallout in this shade right here. I don't know if that picked up, but very dusty. So maybe that's just one shade. Let's tap into another one. Again, very dusty. And just for good measure, let's tap into a third. I really hope you saw that. So by no means is this palette not dusty, or the formula not dusty. For me, I don't mind a dusty formula. I don't mind if there's kick up. I really don't. I can do my eyes first. I can tap my brush off. But what does bother me is that you claim to be a non-dusty formula, and then you're just about the dustiest I've ever worked with. So right off the bat, that just really irked me. And then I'm going to do one eye. I'm going to do a look on one of my eyes, and then I want to save the other eye for one of the other palettes just to show you guys how this blends. So we're going to go in with this bottom row. We're going to go in with the bottom row, the one with the richly pigmented reds, just because these are more neutral than the top. But I want to show you, I was so excited about this shade right here. This is in the shade Lotus. It's a beautiful, beautiful shade. So right now my eyes are set with concealer. I haven't used an eyeshadow primer. And I also did not lay down, like I didn't set the concealer. But I have tried using these shadows both like with an eyeshadow primer. I've tried it with concealer not set, with concealer set. And I get the same issues every single time. I don't know if you can see just like the dusty dust. Okay, so here's that Lotus shade, and right off the bat, I really liked the Lotus shade. This bottom row was the last row that I played with, so I already knew that I was unhappy with these top two rows, but when I put this Lotus shade on, I like loved the shade so much, I was willing to likely keep the palette just for like this shade in this bottom row. But let me just show you. I'm next going to go in with this berry toned shade. This is in Masai. I could be butchering that. And I'm going to go in with a clean E35. And I'm just going to get some on my brush. And then watch how these colors blend together. Let me see if okay, it's blending together a little bit better than I've got it to blend in the past, but I still feel like the color just like muddies together, honestly, but honestly, I feel like the color just like muddies together with one another and creates this like, I don't know, just like muddy color. I don't know if it's even picking up on screen. And then I feel like most of like the darker shade just like really is settling into my crease, but it doesn't stop there. I'm going to then pick up the shade Voodoo, because that's normally what I would do, is I would, oh, and this Voodoo is like another really dusty shade. Anyway, that's normally what I would do. I'd at least have 3 different shadows in my look, and these are all from the same row. And like the website said, any 3 colors in a row you should be able to create a look with. Okay, I don't know. I just feel like, do you see it like all muddies together into like one boring looking, just ugh. So I'm gonna go back in with that first Lotus shade to try and just blend this a little bit more, but like then you'll notice that like the pigmentation just like isn't there with some of these shades, specifically in the top row with like the blues. That's where I noticed the most issue with like pigmentation just not being there. Yeah, see, like, so then I could go in and build up more. But for like, but for $129, like, I feel like these should be more pigmented and like, I don't know, blend together into like a more gradient effect, rather than like, I just feel like this looks like one color on my eye. And it's just really settling into the crease, and I get like I'm working it into the crease, but then I'll go in to like blow the crease out. And it's just like, it's not building up into anything more than really just this. Which this actually looks better than a lot of the other eye looks I've created, like with the bottom row, the middle row, or even the top row. So like, this isn't even coming across as like how bad it's been. Like, I don't hate this look. Like, I could pop some liner on, put some mascara on, and like I could call it a day. But like, truly, this isn't like anything earth-shattering. This is just kind of like a dull, boring look. So with the exception of the colors muddying together and just not looking great together, I've also had issues again with like this shade in the middle really settling into the crease. Like, you literally, it's like light shade, boom, dark shade, and then like light shade again. Like, it just doesn't blend. So that was really disappointing. And then again with this top row with the blues, this shade I was super excited for, this stone shade. I'm not kidding, I probably had to layer that up at least 7 to 8 dips in to even get any sort of pigmentation on my lid. I do have a video where I have an eye look, a blue eye look with this top row, using this top row. I believe it's my September collective haul. I'll link it below if you want to check that out. But that took me so long to create that look because it just took so long to build these shades up. I tried to create a look with like these 3 shades to try and do like one of her like polychromatic looks with shades from different rows, and it was like they didn't blend together at all. It was like green, orange, and then this almond shade, and you could see like specifically the line where each of them like stopped. Like, they just, the shades don't blend together. So all in all, for me, this is 110% not worth it. I think you can find palettes with shades similar to this. What I do think is a little bit sad is there are shades in here that I feel like are pretty unique that I was really excited about. It's like weird. It looks like I have a black eye in the monitor. There were shades I was really excited about that I felt were really unique to this palette, but I think for the quality and for the price, like, I'm just unwilling to keep this palette knowing I've paid $125 for something I know I'm not going to reach for because it's way too hard to work with and I'm not going to enjoy the eye look that I created from it. So if you guys have been thinking about this palette, have been thinking about picking it up, but have yet to have picked it up, I would definitely recommend, like, save your money and spend it elsewhere. Get the Lila palette, get the Sunset palette if you just want to try Natasha Denona, but for me, this is not a good palette. You guys will have to let me know if you have picked this up and tried it and what you thought about it. Maybe you had a better experience than me with this, but for me, this was a total dud, and I am definitely going to be returning this, unfortunately. Alright guys, so next up, let's jump into the mini star palette. Now this I was super excited about. One, because it was one of her minis, which meant it was only $25, and 2, I was really excited for this like blue brown shade that I know is super popular. This one's also super pretty. It's like a nice champagne shade. Again, this is the mini, so it only retailed for $25. It has 5 different shades, 4 grams of product in here. It is just super nice and compact and mini. This is like, it's not even as tall as my hand, so it's very mini. Obviously no mirror because it's just the 5-pan palette, but it's hard plastic packaging, and I do feel like for the most part your shades will be safe. If you drop this, they probably will shatter, but like, that's kind of how it's going to be with any palette. Again, reading from the website, this is a brand new holiday mini eyeshadow palette inspired by the Star Eyeshadow Palette. The palette features 5 shades from the existing Natasha Denona Star palette. These shadows are long-lasting with strong color payoff thanks to a high percentage of pure pigments. Extremely buildable and blendable, these shades will not crease and they will easily adhere to the eye, even without using a primer. So this is the other eyeshadow palette that I wanted to put on this eye just to kind of show you guys how the 2 mattes blend together and then how disappointing this blue shade is. I don't even know. Let's see if this blue shade even swatches well. It swatches okay. Like, it actually swatches pretty decently, but it does not go into the eyes very well. So again, I have my concealer down on my eye, but I have not set it with a powder. Again, these are pretty powdery shadows. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but again, it doesn't bother me if a shadow is powdery, just like, please don't claim to be. Like, don't lie blatantly when it's going to be very obvious that you're lying. So I'm always in again. So right away with that first shade, really no issues with it at all. For me, I'm just building it up a little bit because you do only have the 5 eyeshadow shades in this palette, so you're not working with a ton. Again, the looks you're going to be able to create with this palette are going to be pretty limited. So there's the lighter of the 2 matte shades just worked in my crease. Now I'm going to go in with the darker matte shade, which is even more powdery, and I'm going to work this into the outer V. Okay, so nothing too bad yet. I do feel like these take a little bit more effort to blend than some other matte shadows that I have, but that doesn't bother me, and honestly this is like a wearable everyday look for me. Like, I'm cool with this. Now where this gets disappointing is here, here, and here. I'm going to show you the blue shade because this is the one that I'm most interested in, and I'm not going to assume everyone's most interested in, but I do feel like this is kind of like the star of the show. So I'm going to show you guys how this performs first without spray and then with spray, but this is essentially the reason I bought this palette. I mean, this shimmer shade is also really pretty. I do really like Natasha Denona shimmers in her palettes that I have liked, i.e. her Lila palette. Okay, so first, like right off the bat, I'm noticing like I'm not even really, like this shade is pressed so hard that I'm really not even picking anything up onto my brush. So I'm really trying to scrape in there and get some. I swear there's like nothing on my brush. Okay, well there we go, there's some. Okay, that took like significant scraping to even get product onto my brush, and this is what one layer looks like. So I'm going to dip back in for a second, and again, scraping here. And I'm using my MAC 242, which is the brush I always use for shimmers. There's 2 layers, so like we're building, but still like this is nothing special. I probably would need to like deepen up my V a little bit more too if I was actually going to create a look out of this. Okay, so now we're going to spray the brush. And even with a brush sprayed, like it's really not adding a whole ton more. Next, I want to go in and on this eye, I'm just going to use this middle shade and kind of show you guys how the middle shade performs. The middle shade's a little bit better, like it definitely picks up more than that blue shade. And there's definitely fallout with these. The middle shade I can work with like a little bit more, but it's still like just not up to like Natasha's shimmer shade standards in my opinion. So again, better than the blue, but still. And then this like greenish gold one on the end too, just very similar, just a little bit more firmly pressed, a little bit harder to pick up product, and a little bit harder to work with. All right, guys, so overall my thoughts on the mini star palette is that, again, I feel like this is another one that you don't really need. $25, 4 grams of product. This is super mini. Like, if you have someone who you're like, if you're absolutely dying to try Natasha Denona, I still don't know if I'd even recommend this, just because I feel like this does not give an accurate depiction of her actual shadow quality. if you just have to have this, I don't think it's going to be like a super letdown. Just know that like you're really going to have to build to get the shimmers to be that high intensity metallicized shine for you. But I just was a little bit let down by this. This one I am going to keep. I'm not going to return this one just because I can create wearable looks out of this. But for $25, I feel like if you're really just buying it for like this blue shade, I would go with like the Wet n Wild Comfort Zone palette, because that shade performs better, and I believe the palette's like $4 or $5.99. So this one again, I feel like is a skip from me. Alright you guys, and then the last palette I have to share with you is the 5-pan. This is the regular size 5-pan palette, and this is the Cranberry palette, again limited edition for the holidays. Very beautiful. I was really pumped when I saw this announced, because honestly, like, I really do enjoy the mattes in my Lila palette, but the shimmers are like what sells the palette for me. So I loved the shimmer shades in this palette, and I was really excited for it. I loved the swatches that I saw online for this palette. So this was another one that when I saw this was even after I had been testing the Safari palette and knew I didn't like it, I was still excited for this release. So again, no mirror. It's the bigger size, regular size 5-pan palette. 24-month shelf life on this one too. It's the hard plastic packaging. You do get 12.5 grams of product in here, so you're getting a good amount of product. What I'll say about this one is I didn't save an eye for this one because this is my favorite of the 3 releases. Again, just quickly reading off of the website, this is a new 5-pan eyeshadow palette featuring 4 brand new holiday shades and 1 shade from the holiday 2017 Aries palette. This eyeshadow palette features 5 buttery soft shades that blend together seamlessly. Natasha Denona's revolutionary formula is ultra pigmented, long lasting, and blends easily. Okay, so right off the bat, what I'm going to say about this is I did not save an eye for this one because this is my favorite of the 3 palettes. It does retail for $49, so it is pretty expensive, especially only for 5 shades, and honestly I don't think you can create that many looks out of this. And I found myself needing to reach into another palette or a single shadow to get a transition shade because there's no matte transition shade. So please do keep that in mind. But what I will say about this is these do blend together really nicely. The 2 mattes blend together to give you a beautiful gradient effect. They do take a little bit longer to blend out, but I feel like that's because they're so highly pigmented. The shimmers, this pink shimmer I at first was a little let down by, but then I used it with like a base underneath. I put either concealer down or like a white eyeshadow, and I noticed that I enjoyed the shimmer a lot more. This has a lot of glitter in it, so without a base you don't get as high intense of an impact, which is maybe something you're looking for, but this is a really fun and beautiful shade. I also really enjoy the bottom shade here, which is in the shade Daisy. It's just a beautiful champagne gold, but definitely like a lighter gold, leans champagne. And then you have like your orangey gold right here, orangey copper, which is also a really beautiful shade. Again, I do feel like you're limited by the amount of looks that you can create with this, but I feel like this is a good complementary palette, especially if you have the Lila palette. The tones kind of complement that palette quite a bit. So of all 3 of the eyeshadow palettes, again, this is the one that I do enjoy the most. I definitely will be hanging on to this. I'm also going to keep my mini star palette, returning the Safari palette. But if you are thinking about any of the 3, this is the one that I would recommend the most. I know it's kind of the middle of the range price, $49, still pretty expensive. Do I think you need this palette? Probably not. In fact, I maybe would recommend just setting the $49 aside that you would spend on this and save up for the Lila palette or the Sunset palette, where I feel like you're getting better quality. You guys will have to let me know if you have tried any of the 3 palettes that I mentioned in today's video and what your experience with them were. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. If there's any questions that I did not answer in this video about any of the 3 palettes, please leave a comment below and I would be happy to get back to you. Other than that, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, don't forget to do so before you go, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!